If you feel like you need lots and lots of land in order to have your own family milk cow, then come with me and let's talk about how we are making it work on just about 2 acres. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you should have a cow on small acreage, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't either. And the amount of land that you need per cow really depends. So you'll see online that it's about 1 acre per cow. But that doesn't really tell us much in terms of 1 acre of wooded area, 1 acre of pasture. It really depends on your exact property, the weather in your area, and how much you are willing to supplement hay or grain if needed. Now, because of our small property and the fact that I had never dealt with large animals before, we decided to go with a smaller cow. So Sylvie is a miniature Jersey. She's a couple inches higher than what actually qualifies as a mini Jersey. She stands at 43 inches tall. And so this means that she is going to require a little less food, and she's also a little easier to handle. Now, when thinking about how much space you do need to keep in mind that cows are herd animals. So we don't want to be keeping 1 cow by themselves. And I'm not saying that you can't, and for some short amount of times that might be necessary or okay, but they really do prefer to have a buddy. So we have Sylvie, we have her calf, and we also do have a bull with us right now, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. They're all small, but we have 3 short little cows on our property, and it has not been a big deal. Now, we absolutely do not have enough grass, enough high quality grass to sustain these cows year round. And that's even with us living in Florida, having lots of rainfall, great weather for grass growth. We just don't. And so that is something that you've got to keep in mind if you are going to have cows on small space. You're going to need to supplement. You're going to need to practice rotational grazing. So let's talk about that first off. I would say that our cows have about 1.5 acres. Now, I haven't necessarily perfectly mapped this out, but just thinking of my property, I would say that they've got about 1.5 acres. Some of this area grows grass much better than others, but we have 1.5 acres fenced off. So we have fenced off 4 separate sections for them, and we try our best to rotate them through. Now, this is not a perfect rotation. In a small area like this, it can be really difficult to do this perfectly. This is really when you should try to do it perfectly, but the small space can make it difficult, especially if you need to separate due to calf sharing or separating a bull from the others, things like that. But we do have 4 separate sections fenced off, and we decided to go with permanent fencing. We had dealt with some temporary fencing before, nothing electric or anything like that, and nothing really very high quality. But we had gone with some temporary fencing before, so we really wanted to do something permanent. But if you are wanting to do some type of electric netting that you can move daily or every other day, that is a great option as well. The whole point of rotational grazing is that you're trying to prevent overgrazing and really give your land some time to rest. Now, when you're on such small acreage like this, it's not a ton of time to rest, but anything is better than nothing. So we do have these separate spaces. We will keep them in one space for about a week or 2, transfer them over to the other when the grass has grown up a little bit, and do our best as far as that. But we also supplement hay. We give them hay every single day, even now when the grass is growing up really tall. And I think if you're going to have cows on a small acreage, that is just something that you really need to come to terms with. Are you okay paying for hay? For us, the cost has been totally worth it in order to have our own dairy here on our property and to be able to learn more about having our own dairy cow and gaining that skill. But you have to determine if it's right for you, because if you're living in a climate that gets cold winters or less sun and rain than we do, you're going to be feeding even more hay. So it's really something to keep in mind. Often when we're on a smaller acreage, we might not have a truck or a trailer or things like that you would have on a larger property. So figuring out how you're going to get the hay to your property is something that you do want to think about if you've decided that this is right for you. You've got a small property, but you're going to feed hay. How are you going to get it to your property, to your cow? For us, we take all the seats out of the minivan and fit as much hay as possible in there. So we don't have a truck, we don't have a working trailer, but we still make it work. It's not ideal, but it's working just fine for us. And we do feed a combination of coastal, TNA, and perennial peanut, which for a lot of people would be very similar to an alfalfa, but perennial peanut hay is native to the South, so it's what we choose to do here. We alternate on and off with coastal and TNA. The cows prefer the TNA, but the coastal is a little bit cheaper. So to ease our budget a little bit, we do half and half coastal and TNA. So one day I'll put out Coastal, the next I'll put out TNA, and then they are getting a little bit of that perennial peanut every single day. We also do feed grain at milking. So this is another thing. A lot of people are very into grass-fed. I understand that. That's great. We have found that our dairy cow does great on a bit of grain at milking. And honestly, you need to do what is best for your cow, especially when you're working on a small acreage. You might have to throw out some of the ideals that would be great if you were on a larger property. Some of those just aren't going to work on your smaller property because you don't have access to tons and tons and tons and tons of grass. So we have found that supplementing with hay, making sure that they have as much as they want to eat in that department, and giving grain at milking is the best way to keep our family milk cow healthy and happy. Another question that comes up a lot is a barn, and what do you do in terms of that? Again, with a small property, maybe you don't have a barn on your property and you don't necessarily want to build one. For us, like I said, we are in a warm, kind of moderate climate as far as weather. We do get lots of rain, but there's not really anything that we need a barn for. The cows stay outside all year round. So for us, we decided just to build a stanchion with a roof so that if it's raining in the morning when I need to milk, I can get under that and get out of the rain. But as far as structure, that is all we have chosen to do. Now we have plenty of tree cover on our property for shade for the cows, some refuge from the rain, but we do keep that in mind if they are in one of the paddocks that has a little less shade coverage. If it's a really, really hot day, very, very sunny, we make sure that even if that is the place that they are supposed to be for that week, we are going to open up another section of fence so they can get the shade that they need. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not always perfect with this small property size, but you do make it work. So for you, if you don't have a barn and you want to do this stanchion idea with more of the metal roof, that's fantastic. But if you don't have a lot of trees, you may need to build some type of shade structure, whether it's movable or you build a couple on your property so that your cows have a place to get shade and get out of the heavy rain. Now we're currently in the process of putting together the build plans for the stanchion. So if you're watching this later on, we might have those already. They'll be linked in the description, but stay tuned for that. We'll try to get those out for you guys. Now, one of the downsides to not having a barn, it means that I don't have a place to store my stuff for milking, to store our supplies for our cows. So as far as feed goes, we have some metal containers with metal lids that we put everything in. We've done that for our chicken feed, our pig feed, so we did it again for our cow feed. We also supplement with kelp, OGS, and salt, so we leave those in the buckets as well. And then we have a couple hooks on our milk stanchion for me to tie up lead ropes, put the fly spray, the iodine dip, but the rest of it, if I'm bringing it out for milking, like the milk machine, the cleaning supplies to get her ready for milking, all of that stuff I bring out on a cart every single morning and I bring it back into the house when I'm done milking. Is this ideal? No. Would I love some type of tack room? Yes, but we don't have it right now, so that's what we do. Now, one of the other things that we have to touch on when it comes to keeping cows in a small space is how are you going to breed your family milk cow? Now, for us, AI was something that we always thought that we would do, but turns out there's no AI techs that I can find in our area. And because we have such a small property, we weren't really comfortable with having a bull full time with having children around and things like that. It's just really hard to completely segregate from the cows when it is such a small property. So then our options were taking our family milk cow to a farm to get her bred or bringing a bull here for a short amount of time. So what we chose to do was to take Sylvie to a farm a couple different times. She did not settle. We could not get her bred. So we did decide to bring a young bull here and he got the job done immediately. Now he's been here for about 2 months. And so after we're sure that she's bred, he will go back. But that is something you need to keep in mind on a smaller space is, do you have the space for a bull? Do you have AI techs in your area? Or do you know someone that has a bull that you can use for live cover? Just another difficulty of having a small space, but it is something that can be overcome. So you've just got to do your research. Now, of course, there are other dairy animals that might be better suited to a small space, but if you are just stuck on getting a milk cow like my husband was and you want to give it a try, it can definitely be done on a small space as long as you are intentional about that space and about feeding and supplementing and giving your cow what it is that they need, since you don't have acres and acres and acres for that cow to graze on. If you did like this video, I really think you would like this one, all on a couple more things I wish I would have known before getting our family milk cow. These might be obvious, but they're things that were a little bit of a shock to me. So if you're looking into getting your own dairy cow, you might find this helpful. If you like this video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I hope you're having a great day and I will see you in the next video.